maybe like this. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Let's try this one more time. Okay, Patrice, would you like to introduce yourself? I don't know if anyone will hear you, but
some of our experts who are present here today, like this guy there, was great. It's amazing. And today it's really, we are very proud to be here because we are rolling out the program. We're going to explain to you exactly what this means, but we are also coming to take the time to go into details again, but also go very deep into what the OSD is, what it means for you as project leaders and project officers, what it's probably going to change for you, positive and a bit of negative things that we still need to fix, but we want to talk to you about those as well, and what it enables for the future, which is super exciting. And we know that SIS is one of the most advanced members in the world in this matter. So very excited. We have a packed agenda and looking forward.
thank you so much, Patrice. Yeah, just to be cautious of time, I will go through some of the general information around OSD, some key principles. We'll go through some slides, but most importantly, because we are here today, we want you to leverage from the fact that we have, myself and Patrice to ask questions, to ask those difficult questions. If you have any concerns or feedback on the OSD, we want to hear it. And that's one of the opportunities of having us here today. So for today's presentation, we will go through some key topics of, it's working. So we'll look at what is the online standards development. We'll have a look at OSD in action. We'll show you how to activate your project in OSD, as well as we'll go through some demonstrations. It will allow you also to log in and access in the tool. I am? Okay. Is it working? So Patrice will then jump in and demo how all of that looks in the OSD, and as well give you the opportunity, if you like, to log in and interact and play around with the tool yourselves. We'll then look at the submission at 30.99, as well as go through a summary of everything that we've presented today and talk about the different help and support resources that are available to you. Because we have also recently updated a variety of our training and resources and want to make sure that you're aware of the abundance of tools and resources that you can already leverage from at ISO-CS. And my screen has disappeared. I cannot see the... Oh. Mhm. Thank you so much. Okay, the targeted audience for the training today is for the leaders. When we talk about leaders, we talk about committee managers, conveners, project leaders. We're really looking at, the officers, so the working group officers and the committee officers. And we'll further discuss the different permissions and the levels in OSD in the second half of today's presentation. So let's have a look at what is online standards development. So really, this is a unique platform where we really have a single source of truth. It's a synchronized, standardized place for international standards to be developed. So it allows for working group members to collaborate directly in the tool to create their content. We allow for the member commenting, so you can provide comments directly into the context of the document throughout the key standards development stages. You also have the comments resolution and consensus building, again, also integrated into the OSD. So allows for the committee managers of the ISO committees to then efficiently pre-work, sort, and resolve those comments in the OSD. And again, finally, during the final stages into the inquiry and the approval stage, you have the ISO and the IEC directives automated into the OSD. What's also great about the OSD is that it is technology assisted. So it's also integrated with the ISO stages of development. It has the assisted authoring as well as the automated directives part 1 and 2 into the OSD. Some of the benefits that we can look at, it's really a streamlined standards development. So it's allowing you for collaboration in a single source of truth. So hundreds of people can collaborate in the document at once, but what's important is only one individual can work at a clause at a time, but you can have multiple and hundreds of people collaborating. It's assisted authoring, so it's allowing you to focus, on the quality of the content as opposed to the formatting. It's a document cycle, life cycle within the tool. So the functionality changes as the document goes through the development of the life cycle, and we'll show you later on how that works. And it really obviously simplifies the development experience overall because of all these wonderful benefits. But it's not only benefits for developing the standards, it's also benefits for our members as well. So the OSD can really ease the process of national commenting when it comes to the international standards. So it's improving the commenting for the national experts. It's facilitating the consensus building with improved consolidation of the management of national comments by the voters. And it's really simplifying the submission of national standards by the voters. What's really important to highlight here is the process and the directives remain the same. So whether the disk preparation is prepared in the OSD, in the online document, or in the usual Word template, the directives, the rules, the processes remain unchanged. So currently, if you're working in an online OSD document, the submission document to ISO is automatically done in the tool. We have the DIS available since October 2023, and now in October of this year, we'll have the FDIS available. If you're working in the traditional Word template, the process remains the same. It needs to be manually submitted. What's important to highlight here, some of the things I've noticed is that when the document is submitted automatically and it comes to ISO-CS, to the production team, we notice that some committee managers are submitting them with the online OSD, but also in the PDF version. It's very important to only submit the online document. If you do, for whatever reason, submit the PDF as well, you have to make sure that both documents are aligned, because the single source of truth that will be taken into account will be the automatic submission of the online document. Here's just to show you. So the OSD is available to ISO committees all the way from the beginning, from the preliminary stage, all the way through to publication. What's important here, I'd like to maybe mention is we do get a lot of questions, when can I activate my online document? So your online document can be activated from the preliminary stage up to the preparatory stage. What's important here is that we allow activation at the very beginning because it's a collaborative tool. There are a couple of requirements. There needs to be a working group assigned, and it can only be activated by the committee manager. Sorry, I'm a bit out of breath. Maybe I'm talking too fast. If I am, please let me know. And another question that we receive a lot from members is, can I convert my Word document into the OSD? And the answer is yes, you can convert the Word document, but what we will do is create a new blank template for you, and you will have to manually transfer the content of the document into the OSD. We are happy to help you with this at ISO. So if you have a document that has a lot of content, you can contact the help desk, and we'll be happy to assist you with transferring that content. For revision documents, we can easily just upload the revision into the OSD. All right, catalog coverage. It's a big question all the time. So currently today at ISO, 90% of our deliverables of our catalog can transition into the OSD. The 10% of non-eligible projects currently and in the future we hope to have them transfer into the OSD as well, are the amendments, the IWA, the MSS, and the multilinguals. Currently, they are being piloted, the multilinguals, the IW and the MSS. And maybe perhaps I will just stop here, and if there are any questions, we can open up the floor for questions so I can also drink some water. Do you have the microphone?
Okay, so do we have any questions, either from the people online or?
Maybe
I have a question.
Yeah, I have a question as well, but you can take it.
When we deal with catalog coverage, it's important to realize that we deal with very different aspects of standardization. And I'd like to take some time to explain to you why some of these items are not covered today and why there might be more. This is where we need you again. You're crucial because you are the leaders. For us, you're going to become the advocates of this solution. IWA, there's no working group in theory. It's a standard which is authored with the public. The OSD works based on a process. In our process that we have, based on the directives, part 1, there needs to be a working group authoring the document. But there are other cases where there is no working group. We know that there are some projects which are authored in the SC or in the TC. Sometimes you launch a revision, you go straight for CD, and you may just go, without necessarily creating a working group. All these processes are currently not covered, and it's important you raise them to us. So we'll explain to you a little later what the default mode means, but we are trying also to rationalize how the work is done, because sometimes it makes sense that the project, has just a few changes and you trust the project leader to do that change and submit the document at CD. But there's no review by the working group experts. So either we model these new processes because they make sense and we create new tracks, or we try to avoid the exceptions and we go through a streamlined standardization process. We have one IWA project at the moment, and we've asked BSI to create a fake working group where they create all the experts. And if that's successful, we might create, a new process for properly handling IWAs. But like I said, there may be other processes you're aware of and you need, and you'll be able to tell us in the future how you want to handle these. MSS, that's very interesting. An MSS is not, just a standard. It's a standard with constraints. It's a standard that relies on an overarching structure, which is the Annex SL. So today, 9001 is actually piloting in the OSD. So some of you might be involved in this work. And they're struggling because we asked them, to follow the Annex SL structure. But today, OSD is not ready for that. It's not been designed to have those constraints that you can't violate the base Annex SL. So we are analyzing with them what needs to be implemented to facilitate that work, of knowing when you derive, when you're not deriving, and so on. But again, there's other potential projects that we'll be able to handle in the future, especially if you want to create series or documents in parts, if you want to break down a document. If you have this use case, you know that you've created ISO 123 part 1, and you want to use the same template to create part 2. This is something OSD doesn't do today. So you'll be able to tell us, and we'll be able to add these deliverables into the list of the covered catalog. And yeah, multilingual documents are a different beast. We just don't handle them at the moment. It's pure English for the authoring part. And the editorial team at ISO is really taking this on the side. How do we want to handle translation of contents in the future?
I think there was a question online from a Patrick.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if you said that you could transfer the standards developed in Word, etc., into OSD, But then I just wondered if it's said that all standards that are being developed, and no matter what stage they are at, they could be concluded the old way, or would they need to transfer into OSD at a certain stage?
Okay, so we are going to cover that question all through the training today in different bits. So I'm not going to answer it just now. The one part I'm going to answer is OSD is opening new opportunities for all of us. It's true we are setting up a service that will be available at the end of October. If you start from a mature draft, and it can be, you've started working with the working group, you adopt an IEEE document, a national standard is becoming an international standard. You'll be able to submit to us that Word draft, and we will convert it for you so that you start in the OSD from that draft. So that service will be available at the end of October. You'll have to request that to your TPM, and the TPM will forward the document to us, and we'll do the operation for you.
Thanks.
Perfect. Any other questions? Have you had your water, Marta?
I did.
Good. We'll
I did,
continue.
thank you. I need the mic.
Yeah, so that ties a bit to what we were just saying. TMB has given us the mandate 4 years ago to map existing standardization in a new technology. I'm not going to open the debate, was that a good idea or a bad idea? You all know what I think. We did it. So this is our standardization mapping, of all the stages which are there. And what we did is that we digitalized it and we analyzed what actions are needed at each stage. So when does the working group author the document? When do you open it for commenting? When do you resolve the comments? When do members add their comments? So here you see that translation, and what we're going to demonstrate today is how these features work. But the bottom line message is that there's no change in how standardization processes work. It's the same mapping, same stages, same actors, same global directory roles. And we do not change the nature of the standard either. So same comments, same resolution statuses, and you produce the same deliverables.
Okay. Can everyone hear me online? Fantastic. Okay, let's look a bit at the different access and permissions that are driven by the project stages. So it's very important to emphasize that leaders are responsible for ensuring that projects are in the correct stage. The stages of the project are crucial to define the access rights of the online document and its availability to the ISO members, so drafting versus the commenting mode. Some stages are automatically are updated automatically, and some naturally by your technical program managers. So this is really the same as the Word-driven process. Let's look at the different roles and permissions in OSD. So the roles that are identified here, we have 4 different roles: the reader, the contributor, the author, and the voter. And the leader role remains unchanged. So if you're a leader in the global directory, you will have the leader role. Again, the leader has the control over the document, so they're the ones that can change the permissions and the roles in the OSD. So everyone is automatically granted a reader role in the OSD, and it's up to the leader to assign the correct roles and permissions in the OSD. So yeah, you have 4 levels of permissions. I won't go into the details just to be conscious of time. But again, I think it's just important to emphasize here that as a leader, you have full control over the document and full control on who can edit, comment, and draft within the OSD. So let's have a look at how to activate the projects online in the OSD. So there are just a couple of rules that I wanted to emphasize here. So online projects are activated only by the committee managers. This is easily done with a click of a button, and we'll demonstrate this later on in a video, short video, after I go through some of the rules and principles. So online documents can only be activated again, as mentioned before, between the preliminary and the preparatory stages, so the early stages of development of the standard in the tool. Two requirements, working group needs to be assigned, and it's only the committee manager that can activate the document online. And yes, so revisions can also be activated from the project platform, and to activate an online document for revision, you must complete the online questionnaire. Project activation by committee managers. So again, to emphasize this message, it's only the committee managers who can decide whether the project is developed online or in the traditional way. And we'll show you a little bit later on how you can activate that online document and how you can also access the online document in a variety of ways. So activation of the online document. So this can be easily done in the tool. So I'm sure all of you are familiar with these project overview on the ISO project site. So you have a tab here called Online Documents on the top right-hand corner of the screen. You can easily just click on this tab in the navigation menu. You will get a screen that will ask you to activate the online document mode. And if you are committee manager, this will automatically send a notification to the ISO help desk, and you'll be able to activate that document.
Marta, a
Yes.
question. Is it only the committee manager, or is it only the sort of secretary support?
It's only the committee manager. Is it also, Patrice, the secretary support that can activate? No, only committee manager.
Only committee manager at the moment. Good.
But if that's some feedback you have for us, then we're happy to.
Are you open for questions? Thank you. Just a quick question about the step before activating. How is the decision taken on whether or not it should go into the OSD or not? I mean, the mandatory ones, of course, after next year, but the other ones.
Yeah, you can take it.
We have a specific chapter to cover these questions. How is the rollout going to work? We are going to go through all this, so we'll just keep it for just before lunch.
Wonderful. Okay, so let's look at how you can access that online document. So in the project space, you can access the online document through the ISO projects. You're probably familiar in the different stages. You have the option here through via a link in the edit draft column to directly click on this link, and you can then access the online document through here. Another way to access the online document is through the ISO documents. So once you're in this space, you can find on the right-hand corner of the screen the links to access the online document through here. Keynote, so deactivating an online document. If for whatever reason you decide that you no longer want to work in the OSD, you've contacted your TPM, you've come to a decision that, okay, this is not really working for us, or maybe you have some blocking points or need additional support for your members when it comes to training or working in the OSD, but then you do decide, okay, we want to exit the OSD, it's crucial that you deactivate the document, and that is easily done by selecting the three little dots on the right-hand corner of the screen and deactivating the document. So what's really important here is that if you don't deactivate your document, the online document will be automatically attached to the ballot and the CD consultation, so for ISO CS DIS. So it's very important to not have any confusion later on to ensure that the request is made. Another way to view your projects online, if you go into the project space, you have the search engine just located here. For the additional filters, you can filter directly with online document, and you can access all of the documents, projects that you're working on that have an online document. And you can also save this filter as well, and we're happy to show you in the demo later on. So this is just a brief demonstration, but I don't think it has any sound. So I think what's best, Patrice, is that we demo it live because the sound is not working. And since we've had so many technicalities, we'll skip trying to fix this. All right, I will pass the floor on to my colleague, Patrice. Like this.
I'll use the mic. I prefer this one. I need to connect the computer. Okay. Okay, so let me just share with the Zoom link. There we go. Can you see my screen? Here, yeah. Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, cool. So before we get started, and I'm looking at people online as well, please raise your hand if you consider yourself an OSD expert already. Experts on the OSD online? No? Please raise your hand if you're like so. You've used it a few times, you kind of know what it is, but 2. And now raise your hand if you've never seen it before. The people who have not raised their hands, I need to know what you're doing here. Okay, so we are going to go back from the basics because there's quite a lot of people apparently who are kind of discovering the solution as well. So I'm just going to illustrate what Marta was saying in searching and accessing your projects. So here I'm actually in ISO projects. I'm going to open this frame here. Here we are. So that's a typical project where an activation is required. I've just done a search. And as you can see, I have an activation button here. So I'm actually in production right now. I'm not going to click. And there's going to be different processes we are going to implement moving forward. So this is a very basic process where if we click on activate, that's a new project. It's not a revision. And the document you will get in the OSD is a blank template where you get started. So this very basic structure that I will show you, there's nothing there. By the end of October, there will be a new specific button for revisions. So if you launch a revision and you revise an existing standard, that button will take the former publication that we have in the right format in XML. It will convert it and put it in the OSD for you. So you'll get started from the previous edition of the publication. Important note, that will not include amendments and corrigendas because at the moment, we do not consolidate them, but we'll get better. There'll also be a specific button that we will add, like I explained, if you start from a mature draft. So if you want to submit a Word draft, to ISO-CS, and you want to start from there, you'll be able to attach that draft here. It will be sent to us, and we will be basically creating that initial document for you. Yes?
Yes, just a short question. Will really old standards also be possible to convert, or really old standards, will they also be automatically put into OSD for the refresh?
That's a great question. We are going to answer that question all through the next 3 days. The bottom line message is yes, there will be, but they will change because there's 2 problems with very old standards. First problem, from a pure technical perspective, they do not match what we expect today at a codification level. And we're going to explain to you what that means and what that involves. But more importantly, they do not respect directives part 2 as they exist today. So we've seen in our catalog of standards from 1991, that do not have bibliography or normative section, normative references section. The numbering is off, it's completely manual. And one of the intent of the OSD is to clean the mess, clean the editorial mess, because there's value for consumers. So are there any consumers of standards in the room today? Consumers, like when you're technical experts, but you also purchase and use standards in your day-to-day life today. Yeah, we have. And for these people, I think it's quite important we start rationalizing how the standards can be used. So we are also working on this. So when you are going to import an old standard, it's going to be a semi-automated process where we can convert certain things, but you might have to do a bit of cleanup, basically, and I'll explain to you later what that means. And this is the search, basically in ISO projects. So like Martha was saying, you can search for different filters, and you have this with online document option that will then display for your catalog the list of standards that match your criteria, basically. I'm going to go now into the actual tool. So here you have 2 options. I'm going to share the screen in the Zoom meeting. If you want to be a bit hands-on, you can connect to the Zoom link. And I'm going to share with you a few accesses as well. So I'm going to go into the chat. I'm going to add the link to the test document. And I'm also going to add a file. So, give me a sec. Now, first, yeah. So if you feel like it, if you want to focus on the presentation, do not connect. We are going to go through everything. If some of you want to connect into the document and test also, a bit real time, the different features, you can just click on the link and you can basically use one of the accounts which are there. And you can start having a bit of fun. And I will need some of you. Matt, do you mind connecting actually? Yep. And please take a leader on author account. Okay, so I'd like to ask a question also first. Who's worried, afraid, or resistant to moving towards the OSD for any reason that can be? Don't be afraid of raising your hands, because I would personally be. Not the majority, but still. It's very important, first of all, to realize that OSD is a very big solution. It covers many different processes. And at the moment, it covers certain processes extremely well. And for some processes, there's still work that needs to be done to make the tool perfect. For the technical authoring of the document, we really believe we are close to a very, very, very good solution. So this is the OSD as a technical authoring tool. You can see it's embedded in ISO projects. So you're always home. And that's the first very important message. When you work in the OSD, like Martha was saying, it's not only a single source of truth. You will know you're working at home. So the draft you create is in our ecosystem on our servers. The access to that draft is controlled based on permissions, of the global directory. So the IP of the standard is safe. And you're the ones in control. If you export a Word draft and you send it by mail to experts, it's out there. You don't know what's happening with it. It can be shared outside.
or IP is compromised. So it's also for you a very safe way to be sure nobody not allowed to access the draft goes and messes with it or starts copying somewhere else. From a pure authoring tool perspective, it's really made to look like Word. So basically, I'm going to refresh my screen once. And I'm going to go on full screen mode, which is the best for the visualization. Okay, doke. So basically here, I'm going to scroll through the document, and you can see that those things look like pages, and I can start clicking here, and I can start to add contents. But what you need to realize is that this is a structured content authoring tool. It's not just Word. So when you start actually drafting here, you actually draft XML. You don't need to know about it. So that tab we display, for information, and we believe it's going to become more and more important moving forward. I see Shell there who's very interested, and he'll tell you why later. And we expect that your role also is going to be evolved, because you're no longer to be managers or to produce PDF document, a file which is aimed at printing. You are more in a digital role now. Your responsibility is to create contents that consumers can action, in very different ways than before. This tool allows you to create a PDF, but it could allow you to do more than that. So basically, when you're in this ecosystem and you start working here, you can just not care and just, draft the way you would draft in Word. So, sorry about this one. The train environment. Are people connecting online at the same time? I'm just wondering if...
Trying to, but it's not completely working for me, but I'm trying.
You're getting errors?
Yeah, I'm not accepted based on the passwords and stuff you
No, it's the same for me, actually. It's the same for me.
Yeah, if you copy paste the password, be sure you don't add any white spaces at the end or before. Yeah. Mats, were you able to connect in the document? You are, right? Yeah. I think the issue is that we are probably multiple people with the same credentials. So
I seem to be logged in as the same as you.
Yeah, that's what's causing the connections. It's not supposed to work like that. Some people are connected with the same accounts. So I'm going to work in this document for now, give you the demo to avoid the problems. That's a challenge of multi-access because we need usually to assign one demo user per person. So that probably wasn't a great idea. So my train environment is giving me lots of problems today. Okay. So here, basically, I am drafting like I would draft in Word.
I got in now, so it's working for me as well. So that's good.
Okay. So basically here, note, this is a note. But here in the OSD, we actually have an element which is called note. And here I've embedded my contents in an actual note. So what does it change beside the fact that you see that box, it is yellow? Well, it changes everything. Because in the XML behind the scene that you still don't need to know, we are probably properly putting the contents in the right boxes. And that really, makes the discoverability, the searchability, And also the control we can have on these elements much better. That's also what is going to tie later today when we discuss about SMART, about how right from the start you can draft contents that not only match directives part 2, they are also much more actionable for all these downstream processes. The other big advantage of the OSD, like Marta was saying, it maps directives part 2. So basically here, if I want to delete the forward, I'm not going to find any button anywhere to delete the forward, because the forward is a mandatory element of the standard. When you share a Word draft, there's nothing stopping you from, completely changing it. And very often we end up with documents at submission which don't really match directives, and there's an intense rework that needs to be done to edit those documents. So the OSD makes it, it embeds the directives part 2 to an extent into the editor, and you don't need to read directives part 2 anymore. They're going to become, alive in the editor. If I want to create a sub forward, I can't. If I right click here, sorry about that. I'm having a bit of issues in my training environment today. That doesn't happen in production. Mm-hmm. So I can create a subclause because this is allowed. And when I create my subclause, the numbering of the subclause is automatic, because the numbering itself is described in the directives. We account for the 2 numbering schemes, which are described by the directives, the regular numbering and the alternate numbering, where we restart the numbering of tables in each clause. So now you don't need to worry about the numbering and all the formatting that goes around your standard. The numbering is automatic and you can't change it. And it applies not only to clauses, it also applies to tables, figures, equations. And also, I'm going to basically show you the fact that we codify things properly improve the searchability. So on the right-hand side here in the overview, you have the detail of the different elements. So we are just starting. So I've just created a table. And when I click here, it automatically fetches my table for me. And you can have hundreds of tables, hundreds of figures. You can very quickly find them this way. So see, this is my table clause, table test. I'm going to give a title to my clause, title SIS. And I'm going to create a cross-reference to that table. Basically, hello. Create a cross-reference. What am I cross-referencing? I'm cross-referencing a table. There's only one. I'm selecting it, and I'm inserting it. And my cross-reference is also automatically numbered. That's going to tremendously facilitate the work, when you adopt or when you amend a document. Because today, very often, we would have manual numbering, because when you amend something, you don't want to, impact the numbering on all the previous elements. Well, if I create a table here, magic, this is becoming table 1, this is becoming table 2, and this has been updated for me. So you don't even need to worry about it anymore. And that should really facilitate also all those comments about the numbering, about the position, that used to probably take a lot of time for you before. And that really applies to all the elements that need numbering, which are the notes. A single note is not numbered, but from the moment I'm creating a second one, they get numbered automatically. Same goes with examples, figures, graphics, sub-figures, and we have created all these elements for you. So basically, your working group experts are like your kids, you're giving them a structure to play with now. But it also takes a lot of change management so that they use these boxes well. And they can really focus on the contents now. So if they bother you, with the formatting of the standard, with all these things, you can tell them to really focus on putting the contents in these boxes, which is a big change, but which is going to make it very valuable in the downstream processes.
Patrice, we have a question online. Karin Davidsson.
Yes, Thank you. I have a question. You were talking about that we now have the control of the document and it's not sent all and over everywhere. I'm working for the Volvo Group. That's a large company. All of us are not the members in every specific committee. So if I want to have an expert giving me advice how to write or suggest something, I need to share the possibility to work in the document and read the text. Is that possible in OSD or not?
Yes, and I will explain in a few minutes how that collaboration mode works. Actually, that's the next point I was about to cover. So great question. The best questions are the one, bringing the next item. So it's just amazing. Thanks.
I'm working on a revised standard, and it's been kept as a preliminary work item for 2 years. It's a document of over 100 pages and over 100 illustrations, and we come to a point now that we want to activate it, but we've made so many changes compared to the previous edition. How do we deal with this too?
I'm also looking at leadership. I think it's great to welcome questions when they come like this, but I think it's better so that we can answer them and not keep a Q&A at the end, but I'd like your validation. Yes, fine. So there's two folds to your question. Like I said, if your revision has started outside of OSD and your draft is now completely different, you can submit it to us. We'll convert that document to load it into the OSD. If the changes are minimal, or if it's a good occasion for you to also copy paste them. So if it's 1 or 2 pages, you get familiar with the tool, I think it's great. If it's more 10, 20, 30 pages, if it's a mature draft, you can submit it to us. 100 pages, that's quite small. There's another fold in the pie chart we haven't said is about very complex document. If your document is more than 500 pages, which happens, it's still manageable in the OSD, no problem, but we are going to start having difficulties rendering it in PDF. And that's why we say for projects which are around 500 pages, you need to contact us first, especially if there's a lot of tables, a lot of formatting around tables, lots of figures. It can take hours to generate a PDF. If it's more than 1,000 pages, which still happens, they are just not suitable. The OSD would work well. I'm not going to go into the technical details, but the OSD could handle 10,000 pages because it doesn't care if it's long or not. We don't display everything at once. But our rendering tools, 10,000 pages in PDF, it will take like a few days and it will be really difficult. So the PDF to PDF process remains for these projects. And for these projects, we will try to engage with the leaders. So any person here having more than 1,000 page project? Don't be shy. There's nothing to be ashamed of. Okay, it's quite rare, but we will try to engage with these committee managers and project leaders to break down the documents. Because very often, we can create parts, we can create maybe a series, which will be then also much easier for consumers to use. One last point on how, so sorry about this, my training environment is really a bit agitated today. Here we go. So that structured content authoring, it also allows us to really make very cool things. I'm going to create a term entry here. And a term entry is a very specific, item of the standard. First, it only belongs in clause 3. So here, it has immediately gone under the clause 3. It's number 3.1. I can create 2 levels of subfolders, and I can create terms and subterms. These terms look very specific. So that's, a basic clause. It's like a page of text where you can put your contents. A term is different. If you look at it, there's a term, there's a definition, there's a note to entry. And when I look here, I can create a subject field. I can create elements which are specific for terms. And for each of them, so if I say car, I get specific attributes that we can drive and that we can pre-populate or give you options. And you're sure you're never violating, you know, the directives part 2 here, because this is what has fed the tool. So the terminology features are quite cool at the moment. You can create your terminology, you know, respecting the directives. And in 2025, we'll be exploring a shared terminological database feature where you'll be able to reuse search terms across your catalog to potentially not have to create them every time in every standard. So that's also something we'll discuss this afternoon in all the added value that comes with the OSD. So this is a necessary step we need to take to enable these features. If we remain in a Word authoring environment, the documents are disconnected. There's no way we can open the catalog for you. So Christmas is coming. We are looking at a few great features that we can develop. Now, about the collaborative mode. You can see I'm locking this, and you can see my name. It says you, and you can see a green lock. So how does that work? We work at clause level or at section level. So a term entry is considered as a section. Each term is a section. The forward is a section. An annex is a section. And when a user locks it, I can see here OSD leader is working. It's grayed out. There's nothing I can do on this. So obviously in your working groups, you'll see names. This is a demo and people are connecting right now. They're working with me. But you would see their names. And this means the user is locking the clause, and until the user is pushing that button here, nobody else can mess up with that clause. As leaders in tools, you have a feature to unlock everything. We don't have yet a feature to unlock a specific clause, but you can unlock everything. If a person is gone for holidays or they are unreachable, you have the possibility to do that. I'm actually going to do it now. So everybody online, I'm a leader and I'm forcing the unlock of all the work that has been done. And when I do this, I discover all the stuff that people, very creative experts in Sweden, it's amazing. So basically, I can see the updated version of every single clause. So you lock a clause, you unlock it, it becomes visible for everyone else. And now I can come here and I can start locking it myself. Nice. So when I do this, this becomes locked. So all the other users are seeing that this is locked. And how does the attribution of roles work? So in tools, you have a menu here called document permissions. The basic mapping we do, we nominate leaders based on global directory roles. Like Marta said, committee manager, project leader, working group secretary, secretary support team. These people are leaders. They can't be demoted. They will always be leaders. Everybody else in the working group, they are readers. IEC has followed a different route. They chose to automatically nominate all the working group experts as authors. We decided to go with a more conservative route because here we want the leaders to be able to change the permissions of the working group experts. We sometimes have very large working groups, and it would be unmanageable for you to have 500 authors working in your document. But we welcome your feedback. And if you think we should make everybody authors by default, this is something we can explore. So maybe for small working groups that would work. Maybe we could make this customizable. The current tool works this way. So if I look at Anya Bent here, I can choose to set this expert as author. So that's the trained environment. It doesn't have all the connections working fine, but in production, that would set that user as author. And you can have 4 different roles. Readers, they just read the draft. Contributors, they can read and they can make comments. They can't alter the text. Authors, can make comments, but they can also change the draft. And leaders. And what can the leaders do that others can't? They can accept track changes. So in OSD, everything is in track change mode. So when you look at the screen here, every change that has been made by my colleagues right now online, as a leader, I'm the only person who can accept or reject this change. And the other thing leaders can do that nobody else can, I'm sorry about the glitches in the train. It's not supposed to happen like this. Not great. Is to resolve comments, basically. So you're the only ones who have the role today to resolve the comments that are made by your working group in the technical drafting. So basically here, there's a track change, and we are going to look into commenting a little later on. You can also save versions of your standard. So basically, what are we talking here? So when you have a draft which is mature enough, and you want to save an end number like you would have done in the past, in the menu tools here, you can save a version. And I'm going to do it now. So I'm saving that milestone, and then I'm going to basically add an additional level of structure somewhere, and I'm going to make a change. So I think the fact that we are connected with the same account is creating a lot of troubles to that poor training document. I'm going to work with this one.
Is it possible to contact somebody who has locked a clause and ask them to unlock?
That's a very good question. Not at the moment. We don't have a notification service, and we need feedback to know if that would be helpful. The OSD doesn't generate any notifications. We kind to try, to... Notification is a complex topic because when you start implementing notifications, people will only wait for the notifications to start doing things. So we try to have an environment where people are more forward and proactive than having to set notifications, because a notification in an IT system usually means there's a problem of design. If the person is not unlocking their clause, maybe they should have done it before, or the system should be aware that there should be an auto unlocking. So whenever you have a use case like this, I would have liked to notify that user, tell us, and we'll analyze the underlying problem and try to come with solutions. So yeah, basically the only notifications that you'll get today is when you create a ballot or a consultation, because the balloting system will send a notification based on these dates. But no, at the moment you can't contact a person to unlock a clause.
So the only option is to contact the convener or project leader to ask them to unlock.
To unlock, yeah. Yes. Do you mind asking your question again? It's a great question.
Thank you. No, if you're changing a clause and there are several authors with different opinions, they might change a clause and then you unlock it, and then the next author goes in and changes the same, etc., etc. So is there a revision function so you as a leader can see and compare these different functions and then sort of decide? And secondly, if an author makes a revision which you don't agree with as a leader, and you just delete it, so that author will be very sorry, is there any way for that author to show what he actually put and sort of bring that forward again? So 2 questions. Thanks.
Great questions. So basically, I created versions, and you can see here the feature called document history. So I'm just going to show you again where it's activated. It's in show changes here. And you can see the different versions that the committee is creating. And when basically I want to compare my documents, so again, the train environment is really giving me troubles today, and I'd like to fix that. I'll do it during the break. Otherwise, I might just shift to, yeah, that this one is just. We'll be fixing these glitches, huh? Don't worry about it. So I'm going now to go back and create. Sorry about this glitch. It's really unfortunate. Okay, I'm just going to take another document. Okay. All right, so here basically I'm going to create a first clause that I'm calling title. I'm unlocking this clause. And I'm going to save a first version. Here we are. And now somebody else is working there and they are saying test. They're creating a test procedure here. They're adding some text. They're creating a subclause. And they're unlocking those two. And as a committee manager or project leader, you're creating a new version here. So you see, this is the production environment. It's very responsive, it's very fast, it's not buggy. I'm really sorry about the train environment, which is on a different system. You can see the two versions that I've created. And when I select this and I want to compare, you can see immediately what is changing and who is proposing the changes. So you can see in plus the clauses which are added. You'll see with a red bin the clauses which are deleted. And you can see here the text which is added, and you can see who. So this is basically, you know, because I'm using a test document, but you would see the name of the user who made the change. The only thing this system doesn't take into account, we always work in a sequential way. So it's always version 1, version 2, version 3. You can't branch and compare 3 different options to choose the one you like the most. And we know today that some committees work this way. Again, because it's a very layout perspective. How should we order our clauses? Let's try 3 Word documents. We put them next to each other. This is the best. The tool doesn't allow this. So it's always in a sequential order that you can visualize the changes. If you need something else, you would have to tell us. Oh, so we save versions automatically. The system saves a version every time there's a stage change.
I thought it was a short question.
Probably not.
If 2 authors, as the previous question was asked, if 2 authors are changing the content and you don't save different versions, how are the changes viewed?
So in the document here, in track changes, you're going to see all the changes that have not been looked into by yourselves yet. So here I can click on this and I can see that I'm adding this piece of text. If another user comes here, basically, and deletes this, of course, that doesn't apply anymore because that text is gone. But we still have the previous version of the clause, which is there in the system. So when you organize your work, you need to understand, with your authors, and that's really like project management you need to set up. When do you welcome changes? When do you want to stop those changes to be able to have a look at the track changes, eventually save a version? So the tool is quite flexible. There's no, firm way that after each change, we save a version, because that would be unmanageable. You would end up with thousands of versions. So you have the freedom to create the versions the way you want. And it's up to you to tell your authors, because you can control also who authors, So obviously, if Martha has authored this clause and she's added this, as an author of the same working group, I'm going to be cautious when I go here, and I might make a comment instead of, making a change. And we are going to explore the commenting features as well. So it's also common sense. We don't want to create a tool which is too complicated to use. But basically, when you want to visualize all the changes to review the track changes, it happens here by activating this little squiggle. And when you want to visualize like more high-level versioning of the document, it's done here, where you can see the different versions and compare them. Make sense? Any other question? I'm going to, hopefully my train environment is in the better shape. Let's have a look, because I wanted to demonstrate the last bit of the added value of the OSD for the structured content authoring. Yeah, it looks better. Cool. So there's a little helper here, a little button that we call content quality. I'm going to turn it on. And obviously it won't start. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this into my production. There we are. I'm going to hide the track changes, and I'm going to activate content quality in production. And you can see little squiggles. So that's basically one of the main powers of a tool like this. When I click on words, it's not just a spell checker. So there is a basic spell checker, which is here, that is going to give you British English dictionaries. But this is an advanced spell checker with a lot of editorial checks that we can automatize. So, ISO wants to reinforce gender neutrality in standards. So now we have the possibility to have dictionaries for many things. And we welcome also your ideas at SIS, and we can share these dictionaries moving forward of things we want to control as early as possible, so that you can take this into account. There's nothing mandatory here for you to do. It's an info, based on the house style of ISO. Here, well, you're citing the ISO 9. You're not supposed to cite an MSS normatively. That's, it's a standard that you're citing, but what are you doing exactly? Are you creating a bibliographic reference? Is it a normative reference? Right now, this is just text. So the smart teams, they need to know this information to do a good down processing, So here, we give you the option to actually look at the catalog of standard of the ISO IC and select the standard you wanted to, and actually formalize the creation of a normative reference, which, by the way, is automatically added here. So this is a point I could speak about the OSD for days and days and days, but the normative reference section is now fully automated. So you see the system is locking it. You can't actually author it. And the list of standards which are there are the ones you're going to normatively reference inside your publication. And the same goes with the bibliography. So if I go back to the content quality checks that were, where were they? Here. Compliance, conformance, conformity assessment. There's a lot of things that the editors can attract your attention on earlier on in the process, so that you either avoid using these words or you set up specific actions to make sure you're using them the right way. You have to do something. Well, the directives tell you that for requirements, have to is not the right way to express a requirement. So here we can also start refining the way your authors are going to create those contents. So actually, they shall do something. And we are going to, this afternoon, discuss this more in detail, you know, how the OSD becomes an enabler for different topics in standardization. Same here, table 3. You haven't cross-referenced it. It's just text. So here, we have a few buttons. Oh, I don't have any table in my document, you see? So I'm referencing something that doesn't exist. So I'm creating it right now. And here, I was referencing table 3. Well, it's not table 3, it's table 1, but I don't care anymore. This is automated for me. And like I said, we have a basic also content quality feature, spell checker of British English. And I'll show you a last one, which is super interesting. I'm creating a term entry called test. That's just an example, doesn't make much sense. And I'm going to just refresh my document. I'm going to reactivate content quality. And here, the tool suggests that I create a cross-reference between the occurrence of the term and the term entry itself. That's something you're not obliged to do. There's nothing in the directive obliging you to do this, but that's a very good way for you to control if the terms you've created in your terminology are cited at least once in your publication. The same kind of principle applies to the bibliography. Today, we have a lot of committees that create entries in the bibliography that are not cited anywhere. That's a big problem for consumers because they end up with those documents there, but they don't really know what to do with them. So today, the tool will force you to have an occurrence of the bibliography of the item somewhere in your document for it to appear in the bibliography. And we realize directives part 2 are sometimes blurry about these things, and our own editors, they have now to realize, you know, either we become more formal about this, or we find ways for you to create specific clauses where you would mention these documents and their purpose. So if you observe things like this that are not fine for you, like you can tell us, we need to have these documents there for that purpose so that we can then see how to implement it in the tool. But the way you will be doing it will be the same as all the members in the world. We are kind of streamlining how we create that data. So this is what the OSD is about. It's not just moving to a new platform. It's really finding a way to harmonize how we create contents. With this, I'm done.
Can I ask a question? Yes, I was thinking about this quality check for the term entry, and I saw that it didn't pick up that it was a circular definition because the test was defined as test, so it's exactly the same. Shouldn't that be part of the quality check?
This is one thing we want to improve. So we want to have specific checks for the circular definitions. And like I was mentioning before, next year we'll be working on a terminology feature that will open the other terms of all your other standards. That will allow you to refer to these terms and adopt them. So you import their data. We have so many terms in our catalog, which are the same term, but sometimes different just because of a comma or a space somewhere. When you read the documents, it doesn't make much of a change. But I'm sad that Shell is gone. For the people in his team, for SMART, one comma different can mean an entirely different thing. For the consumers, you know, they need to be sure this is the same term. This is the same definition. So the OSD will help us to clean up also, you know, our catalog of data and to make it more consistent so that in the future you can reuse things. But there'll be more added value in this afternoon in the presentation as well.
Just a question on the cross-referencing. Is it mandatory to do it, or is it voluntary to do it?
For terms?
For terms, it's...
I'm asking if you're asking for terms or for everything.
Both for the table and the term, for example.
Yeah, so I think according to that, I'm not an editor, but for your tables, your numbered elements have to be cited at least once. And content quality is going to introduce that check for you. So moving late October, the content quality will show you when you have a table or a figure or an equation which is not cited anywhere. Terms, it's not mandatory.
Okay.
According for the directive. So this is more of a help. It's going to show you all the terms that you've created that are not cited anywhere, and it will help you create those links when you have an occurrence somewhere. It will help you to create those links automatically. That won't change anything in terms of rendering in the PDF. It will just look like a normal PDF, but you create that data. You create that anchor saying that the requirement, 4 in the clause 5 refers to the term here. So it's more of an exploratory process at the moment. It might become more formal in the future, but it's not the case yet.
So you can say it's like a help, a tool during the stage of the OSD development, but when it becomes a PDF, you don't see that cross-reference. Okay, thank you.
One more question regarding versions. Me as NSB or whatever role I have, could I have a list of what changes are made in the different versions? Could I extract that information somehow and perhaps compare it to an original?
So you can export a Word or a PDF out of the OSD, but we don't export the changes alongside. So I understand what you need, but I would need to know why you need it.
To check what has been made to the document.
And why don't you use the online features for this?
Oh yeah, no, I don't. I can use. I'm asking if there are online features for this.
So the document versioning that we've shown is what is.
If there are, I have the original, and then I have a group that's working with the document, and then after they say we're ready now, we have made the changes to the documents. I want to check. So I want to compare the original to their new version, and I want a list of what's been changed to check.
Basically, let's say that you're in this phase of work right now. You're just starting, so you can create a version. My version is now created. You can tell your authors to go ahead. They can make the changes that they want. So I'm coming here. I'm creating a subclause. They're calling it hello. They're making a change to an existing clause. Change here. Then they tell you, we're done. We're done with our work. So obviously, you need to make sure, they need to make sure they've unlocked everything. That doesn't really matter. And now it's up to you. You can create a new version. And now in the track changes system, I'm actually going to compare my latest version with the one before. And you're only going to see the differences. So you see here the clause that has been added.
Yay!
And you see with a blue dot, only what has been changed.
Thank you. Perfect.
If I understand you right, it's only when you, as a leader, create a version, then you sort of fix something. But if there are authors making changes on same clauses between two versions, can you see those things?
So if they don't compete with each other, you will see them with the different names. The problem is when the changes compete with each other. So if you have author one who's saying we should do this, and the author two comes and deletes this and creates something else, you'll only see the latest version. And if that's a problem, we need to know, and we need to see how we can address it.
To me, it sounds like it's important to follow the changes in the document, but now it comes a chore to the leader to actually create versions enough or often enough to actually then make these changes visible. It would be better to have a system where you could actually follow all entries in the tool without having to lock them down with versions. So you would see like a complete review of all changes. And also, if you have version 1 and then version 10, it would be good if you can, perhaps you can, compare what are all the changes between your version 1 and 10.
You can.
Okay.
So basically, you
That's
can
good.
select 1 to 10,
Yeah.
any version, and you can see all the changes between 1 to 10. So that works.
Okay.
But use the tool today, the way it works, and let us know, like in real use cases, we are facing a problem because these two authors have made a change and now I'm unable to show what has happened, and we'll address it.
We might have cases where we have authors from competing companies, and they might not be so nice authors. So it would be good to have a way to actually be able to backtrack and say and show everyone what actually was done and changed. Thank you.
Thanks.
But Patrice, isn't that track changes within a version?
Yeah, exactly. So the only problem with track changes is that if they are competing changes, the track change is really intimately linked to what we are changing. So you can see here, I'm adding this change, and that's in track change. The other thing which is important with track change, it's an operational track change. So once I accept it, it's gone. That annotation is gone. It's gone forever. It means we are accepting this. And I'm creating a new version of the clause, and now I can create a new version of my standard. But that track change is, it's like in Word. Once you accept it, it's gone. And if I make another change here, and I'm unlocking my clause, and if Marta comes just after me and she thinks that this doesn't make any sense, and she deletes it, the track change is also gone, like in Word, basically, because, the underlying content is gone. It doesn't exist anymore. So here again, we are trying to make a tool which is very similar to Word. And we know that sometimes committees, when there are very political problems in their committees and they want to really track everything, they create a lot of different Word versions all the time so that they can compare them afterwards. This is not, super user-friendly as a system. So if you face these issues, if you have a real use case you want to share with us, we're happy to connect and see exactly what is the thing you want to solve, and we'll try to find a solution. At the moment, it's a single version system with track changes and versioning.
Yeah, can I build slightly on that? Because I can definitely see the same problem if you have these groups where there is a lot of competition, because then you might have an expert coming in at the end, deleting everything and completely stalling the process, or experts coming in and deleting each other's changes. So in those type of groups at the moment, you would have to only let the experts be commenters, I assume, so they can't change the text.
And this is why, compared to the IC, with implementing that control that only you have as leaders, you're the only ones who can decide. And in a way, we are kind of, extending the directives here, because directives are not super clear about this. You can tell an author, stop, you're a contributor now. So you can't destroy the draft. You can make comments, and we'll explore commenting a little later on, but you can't destroy the draft anymore. You're putting us down, we are getting late, make your proposals, and we'll be reviewing the proposals, because the proposals stay in the system forever compared to the track changes. So I propose we add LO here. You'll have to resolve this and say, no, we decided as a group we won't, and that stays in the system forever. So you need to define people who build, they are the authors, and people who challenge, and those probably should be contributors.
I have a question. I'm still struggling whether this is just for writing or if what you're showing is for commenting. Because I am part of a number of working groups where the atmosphere is very hostile and where we repeatedly have to remember of the code of conduct on international level. There are commenting, directing in all possible ways. So when we are meeting and have to discuss these comments, there are comments all over the place, and we end for hours of discussion. So we have to have all comments on the table at the same time. So my question is therefore, is this just for authoring, or is it how you deal with the comments then later on? Because if this is how we deal with the comment, it will be catastrophe in the committees I'm considering.
So not at all. We haven't looked into commenting yet, and we are going to have a specific part about commenting in the frame of a technical drafting. What we've looked at is for the authoring. How do you build your draft? So this is really, you know, for the leaders, the authors, the builders that you will nominate, create that draft. And those people, you know, they can actually alter the text and everything else. For the contributors and for the working draft study process, we are going to have a specific demo about how those features, how they work, and how also you resolve these comments and how it impacts the changes and all that. So we have a separate topic about this.
Can you lock so you're only author for one or two clause and not for the others?
Not at the moment. This is a feature which is in our radar. When you nominate an author, they can author anything. If you have that use case where you want to restrict the authoring to only a few clauses or a few parts of the standard, let us know. So far, it's been a rare demand. Again, every time you request a feature, it's additional complexity in the tool for everybody, you know, because you'll have tomorrow to nominate these authors, tell them only clause 6 and 7. Do you really need it? Or is it possible, you know, with your restricted group of authors to have a good communication, you know, and good practices? Or you can tell us it doesn't work. That's a reality, it doesn't work. Because that reality we can also raise to TMB. The TMB is in the clouds there. They think like the world is, you know, everybody sings when they author standards, and, you know, it's, this is also an occasion for us to tell them what's the reality on the terrain. You know, it's challenging for the committee managers and the project leaders. They face a lot of hostility. So when you can also raise it to your own member body, you know, they need to know what we need to do for this tool to work. And it will be partly software development, but also human change management. Like, you have to stop trying to destroy the draft just for the sake of destroying the draft. You have to be constructive. So.
Can I ask a technical question?
Yes.
You got some. Well, you wrote table 3, and there were no table 3.
Yeah.
But perhaps you wanted to cite table 3 in another standard. Can you do that? I mean,
you will be able to do this soon.
Okay.
So at the moment, single document, we only expose the catalog of ISO IEC standards, and you can normatively or bibliographically reference those standards as a whole. This afternoon, we'll be discussing what we are going to do next year. But spoiler alert, we're going to expose the entire catalog of standards in the OSD. You will no longer have to go into OBP, and you'll be able to browse all the clauses of all the standards, and you'll be able to cross-reference specific items in other standards.
Yeah, but it was not red, it was blue, this table 3 thing.
Okay. Let me just check. So I'm going to activate content quality again.
And is that what you're talking about now, including this sourcing? Then, I mean, currently we put a source, and then you can be very precise in the source of reusing a term, for example. Yeah.
We are going to review how those cross-references across different documents work. We are going to define proper codification, proper behavior, and we are going to implement it in the tool.
Oh, sounds good.
Yeah, it will be very valuable. So yeah, it's blue, but that's content quality that shows it blue. The color is not important here.
No, but I meant if it's red, then perhaps it's yeah, not possible to go forward. And
I see your point.
Oh, yes. Colleagues online, we're taking a well, 15-minute break, 15-minute break, and we'll resume at 11 o'clock.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you.